Today's video is the first of 3 videos with their theme being Why I Believe Jesus is the Real Deal. During this video, we'll consider the uniqueness of the Bible. In video 2, we'll answer the question, can we trust the record of the resurrection of Jesus? And then on the third video, we will take a deeper look at the Judeo-Christian biblical Jesus. Our aim will be to help us to answer the question, how shall we now live in the 21st century? This first video has been compiled over the last few decades of study. Much of it is from the book by Josh McDowell called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. We'll take a look at several ways in which the Bible is unique. It's unique in its span. What do I mean by that? It was written over a span of 1,500 years. As far as the Old Testament is concerned, it was written sometime between 400 BC and 400 BC. The earliest books, most likely written by Moses, were about 1,400 years before Christ, and Malachi, the writer of the last book of the Bible, was written about 400 years before Christ. And then as far as the New Testament is concerned, Mark and or Paul were the earliest writers of the New Testament, and they wrote somewhere around 50 AD, which happens to be about 17 to 20 years after the death of Jesus. And the last book, written by John the Apostle, the book of the Revelation, was written somewhere between 90 and 100 AD. Now let's look at the uniqueness of the Bible because of its ability to survive. As to the Bible's ability to survive, we're going to look at it from two perspectives. The first perspective is that scribes have painstakingly over the years copied the Bible such that we have tens of thousands of manuscripts in multiple languages. Its second ability to survive is because its enemies have tried to burn it and outlaw it over centuries. In fact, it was Voltaire, who died in 1778, who said that Christianity would be swept from existence. An interesting fact is that within 50 years of his death, his personal printing press was used to print Bibles. Not only is the Bible unique in its ability to survive, but also in its teachings. There are proven prophecies within the pages of the Bible. In fact, over 30 prophecies in the Old Testament pointing to the coming of Jesus Christ. Not only are there prophecies throughout the scriptures, there's also the historical aspect and the archaeological aspect of the scriptures, both having proven to be very reliable. Then there's the uniqueness of the Bible in its influence. First of all, it's had influence on literature. When you stop and think about the volumes of books that have been written all about the Bible, some negative and lots very supportive, it's amazing the influence the Bible has had on literature. Then there's the influence the Bible's had on science. If you stop and think about it, almost all of present-day science is based on biblical understandings. In fact, so many of our early scientists, like Kepler and Sir Isaac Newton, trusted the God of the Bible. In fact, Sir Isaac Newton said that as he was doing his science, it was as if he was thinking God's thoughts after him. And then finally, the influence that the Bible has on changed lives. People like myself have been really changed because the Bible can be trusted. We see another aspect of the uniqueness of the Bible because it was written by over 40 authors from very different walks of life. Some examples are Moses. He wrote part of the Old Testament. He was a political leader, and he was trained in the universities of Egypt. Then there's Joshua. He also wrote a book in the Old Testament. He was a military general. Then there's David. He started out as a shepherd boy. He then was a warrior. Remember, he slew Goliath, and finally he became king of Israel. Another example was Nehemiah. He was a cupbearer in the service of the king. Daniel was a slave who became a prime minister, and Amos was a herdsman. Then there's Peter in the New Testament. He was a fisherman. And Matthew, he was a tax collector. And Luke, he was a physician and an historian. And finally, there was Paul. He was a Jewish rabbi and a teacher who had actually persecuted early Christians. Another reason why I believe that the Bible is unique is because it was written from different places. For example, it was written in the wilderness. And then there was the books that were written by Paul while he was in prison. There were a couple of kings. They wrote from their palace, like King David. Then there's Joshua, who we noted was a general. He wrote during wartime. Then there was the book of the Revelation, written by John the Apostle. He wrote from an asylum on the Isle of Patmos. The Bible is unique because it was written on 5 continents. It was written on Asia, Africa, and Europe. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew. The New Testament was written in both Greek and Aramaic. It's unique in its circulation. No other book comes close to the number of Bibles circulated worldwide. Then there's a uniqueness of its translation. Parts of or all of the Bible have been translated into over 1,000 languages and dialects. Then we have the uniqueness of the various writing styles. For example, we have poetry and song. Then we have historical narrative and biography. And there's prophecy. And there's legal and parable. And then there's personal correspondence. In conclusion, the more I've studied this topic, the more convinced I am that the Judeo-Christian scriptures have so many answers to the question, how shall I now live in the 21st century? If this is a blessing, please tell others. Please like this video. And finally, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. And now may the God of the scriptures bless you and keep you and shine his face upon you now and forevermore.